in Moscow in the Russian Space Museum. Hello and welcome to Expat American. I, of course, am the Expat American. I'm standing here in Vedyn, the giant park museum that looks a lot like, almost exactly like, the park museum, the Washington Mall in Washington, D.C. You can see a fighter jet behind me there. That is their Air and Space section of Vedyn. And right here next to me, a giant Russian rocket. And the question today is, are Russia and America's space programs against each other, or are they in partnership with each other? That's what I want to explore as I wander through Moscow and look at a few museums today. A lot like the Air and Space Museum in DC. That is a giant spaceman. They call them cosmonauts here in Russia as opposed to astronauts. Different rockets on display from their space program in Russia. Look at this giant hall. All these rockets. See that CCCP symbol everywhere. It actually is pronounced SSSR, which is Russian for Soviet Union. I'm an American in Russia inside a Russian rocket ship. There's another hammer and sickle on the wall. It's kind of like finding the hidden Mickeys when you're at Disney. Find the hidden hammers and sickles in Russia. This, of course, is the moon. I'm orbiting it right now. I like how the inside of this place is designed to look like a giant airplane hangar. I don't think the Air and Space Museum in DC is designed to look that way. Better angle of the hall, and that is Yuri Gagarin, their famous astronaut man who went into space for the first time. I like this giant spinning globe that they have here. Here is Florida, where I'm from, a hot place. And I always felt like I just envisioned it was across from England. It's actually across from Africa, another hot place. If you want to compare, so here's Moscow, is somewhere right in here. And if you spin the globe and follow your finger back around to the other side of the world, you're not in the US, you're across from Canada. So it's definitely a much colder place than what I had realized. I mean, I knew it was cold, but I always thought of Florida as being across from England, and then New York kind of being across from Russia, but that's not the case. Russia is much, much further up. Star Wars for sale in the Russian gift shop for the Air and Space Museum. All right, so that's enough of that building. So in movies, let's say in Hollywood, the depiction of the space program, you've got 2010 from my childhood, not the famous one 2001, but the sequel 2010. That's a fictional account of Russian and American space programs working together and having challenges. You also have Armageddon, which I think is the biggest film that frustrates Russians in a funny way, showing a Russian character in space who's kind of a goofball. And I know that in the news today, you know, it definitely sounds in international news like Russia and America are not getting along. But then I just saw, there's the jet plane, this is October, I saw a story in October, a news story, that out of Florida, the US just launched a Russian cosmonaut, a devushka, a young female, into space, to the International Space Station. So it just makes you wonder, because you hear so much in the news about how hard times are between the two countries, but yet their space programs are working together, and the US is helping send a Russian astronaut into space. You know, why would they do that? Why would they work together on that with all that you hear in the news? There is a giant aquarium museum where you can see dolphins and different fish animals in their large tanks. So in Vednha, and in Russia in general, I would say, the music that they listen to and play is a mixture of English-speaking songs and Russian-speaking songs. So you've got pop songs that you'd hear in America and in England or Britain, and then you have Russian songs that sound like pop songs that you wouldn't recognize. And even here, they're blasting music on the speakers throughout the park. And it's interesting, it's kind of like in the style of, I guess, sentimental Christmas music in the West. Not that it's Christmas music at all, but it's that style. It's songs that maybe you heard 20 years ago and you're like, wow, I wouldn't have played this, but it sounds cool to hear right now in this park. Aha, there it is. I'm walking out of Vednha. It's taken me a while to get there. You know what that is? We'll get a little closer. So this is a giant statue of a spacecraft launching into space. And right there on the gate is a statue of Sputnik, the Russian satellite, first satellite, I believe, ever launched into space. And this is another museum just outside of Vednha that is specifically devoted to space travel. So let's go inside now and see what we see. Here we are inside. There's a cosmonaut statue. That is Sputnik. And here are the two dogs that were launched into space. This is actually them, stuffed and on display. Strelka and Bielka. I didn't know they came back alive, so that's kind of cool to see. Not sure what this table is for. It looks like where the Borg try to turn Data into a human, or Anakin becomes Darth Vader. Makita Space Tools. I guess at one point the Russian cosmonauts had to camp out after they landed to keep themselves alive until they were picked up. There's a Soviet spacesuit. And over here, look at this, an American spacesuit, and a tribute to some American astronauts. Interesting that that is in here. More tributes here. American flag, Canadian flag, joint progress in the space program. And look at this behind me. Looks like the space shuttle, right? I'm not saying it is. It's a model of what looks like a space shuttle. We are at the very least sharing scientists, I would guess. And there's an orange one, because why not? So what is up with the Russian and American space program? Are they in partnership? Are they against each other on planet Earth, but unified out in space? Did I answer the question or just create more questions? Anyway, if you like this video, click like, click subscribe, ring the bell notification. And if you want to see more, click up here where I will be wandering through a Moscow park that you may have seen before, but not in the daytime, and answering the question, why am I living in Moscow? Personally, I think this means that Russia and America are more friendly than the news media would like us to believe.